The next part of the footstool is going to be laying out the stretcher. When we originally do that, it's made out of wood, but what we like to do is make it out of paper first to make sure that your stretcher is going to fit your footstool. Now, why do we do this? Everybody's footstool sometimes is a little bit different. Maybe you cut a little bit too far in on your mortise. Maybe you didn't cut far enough. Maybe you planed your board for your leg thickness smaller than 3/4. So everybody's footstool might be a little bit different, and you have to make your stretcher to fit your footstool. So there's not a common pattern. If everybody made the exact same footstool, and this was mass produced and there was no room for mistakes, it would be easy just to give you a pattern, trace it on a piece of wood, and cut out your stretcher. This part right here is your stretcher on a footstool. Let me see if you can see that. So that's this part right here. And what that does is that keeps your legs from bowing in and out, so that when you stand on your footstool doesn't, the legs don't push in or push out, and it gives it some rigidity. Now, really, if you look at any piece of furniture around your house, most things have stretchers. Something has to hold the legs that are just straight down from a piece of wood. Something has to hold that. On a desk, it's usually the back of the desk. If you look at a coffee table, there's usually an apron that goes around the bottom of the coffee table or up by the legs to hold the legs so that they don't flex or bow when there's pressure put on them. So this stretcher is what we're going to lay out today. Over here is the footstool that we're going to lay it out on. This is the one we've been working on in class, and this is the one that we're going to lay it out for. So we're going to lay it out on a piece of paper. The first step is to measure your distance from outside of dado, not inside of dado. This is the inside of the dado, so you want to measure from outside of dado, which is right here, to outside of dado, which is over here. The measurement should be 10 3/4. But if you didn't lay your dados out correctly, that measurement could be a little bit different. So I'm going to measure mine, and mine is 10 3/4. So I'm going to take my piece of paper, which is here, and I'm going to mark. Now I'm going to lay it out in pen because I want you to be able to see this. I want you to lay yours out in pencil, so if you need to erase, you can. So I'm going to take it here. I'm going to mark it 10 3/4 at the top. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to put a mark at 10 3/4 at the bottom. Why am I doing this? Because it's hard to put a wood tri-square or a combination square on this to give yourself an accurate mark. So I put a mark at the top and at the bottom. So I have a mark right here, and I have a mark right here. Now I'm going to draw a straight line down from that. So I'm going to take this and connect the two dots so that it's square. Now, to make it easier, I'm going to cut this off now. So I don't need this piece of material because my stretcher only goes from here to here. I don't need the rest of this paper. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors. I'm going to cut this off to the correct length, which is 10 3/4. Now, so if you were doing this out of wood, the first thing you would want to do is measure a piece of wood, mark it 10 3/4, and take it over to the radial arm saw and cut that off. But that's why I make you make it out of paper. Paper is much cheaper than it is to make mistakes on the wood. The next thing you want to do is you want to figure out the depth of your mortise with your leg inserted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this roller, I'm going to put it here, I'm going to get a measurement on the left side. So that is 7/8 of an inch. So I'm going to mark this piece of paper left and right, because maybe my stretcher isn't exactly symmetrical from the left to the right. So now what I want to do is I want to measure down from this top corner down towards the bottom 7/8 of an inch. So I'm going to take my roller and I'm going to mark 7/8 of an inch down. Whoop. Put a mark. Now I'm going to take my other leg, I'm going to insert it inside of the footstool, and I'm going to measure the distance from the top of the foot, or from the bottom of the footstool to the top of the mortise. So I want to take this, hold it in place, get this measurement. Now this one's a little bit different. This one here is 13/16. So it's not quite 7/8. So on this side, on the right side, I'm going to measure down 13/16 of an inch. So I come over here. Let's get this so you can see it. I'm going to measure 13/16 of an inch down and put my mark there. So what that's representing is that's representing how much of this is going to go through the footstool. So this is your mortise here, and this is going to be your stretcher, which is right here. So that's the first step, measuring with these inserted into the dado. The next step I want to do is I want to know the thickness of my leg. So these should be 3/4, but if you planed your leg too short, it's not going to be 3/4. So I'm going to measure the thickness of my leg, and mine are 3/4. So I'm going to mark that 3/4 in from the outside edge of the paper. So 3/4 and 3/4. That's just the thickness of your leg. And you're going to do that right at the mark where you put your 7/8 mark or your 13/16 when you had your leg inserted into the dado. So I'm going to go like this here, and I'm going to come over here 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to do that on the left side. I'm going to do that on the right side because I planed this board at the exact same time. Now this one is 3/4. There we go. So that is the thickness of my leg. So I came down the depth of my mortise with my leg inserted on both sides. I came over 3/4 of an inch on my left side. I came over 3/4 of an inch on my right side. The next part is very easy. I'm going to measure down 1 inch and over 1 inch. Down 1 inch and over 1 inch. So I'm going to measure down here 1 inch. Draw a line. Same thing here, 1 inch. Draw a line. Then I'm going to measure in towards the middle 1 inch. So I'm going to connect these two. Put this here and put that there. I'm going to measure in 1 inch. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, 1 inch. There we go. Now what I want to do is I need to make this arc. So as you can see, this has an arch to it. So what you would normally do is get a friend in the classroom and have them hold a roller on end like this, and they would bend it for you. So they would take it and bend it up until you could touch this part, and then you want to measure to the middle. So we taught you how to measure a fraction and get half of that. So we said the easiest way to get half of a simple fraction is to double the bottom number. So if you can remember back to the beginning of this video, we said that from here to here was 10 3/4. So we know that half of 10 is 5, and that half of 3/4 has to be 3/8 because we double the bottom number. So I'm going to put a mark at 5 3/8 right in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 1 inch down and just roughly just put a little dot. So what I want to do, let me make this dot bigger so you can see it. What I want to do is I want to bend my roller so that I touch this part, and this part, okay? So I don't have a third person or a second person here right now. But if I did, what I would do is I would hold my roller like this, and then somebody would trace it with a pen or a pencil. I don't have an additional person, so I'm going to use a clamp as a second person. And I'll show you here in a second, as soon as I get this set up. So what I'm going to do is I got a clamp. I just have a quick grip, and I took so what I can do is put this here, put that there, and I can either tighten or loosen this clamp to get my arc. I actually look pretty good right there. So I'm going to take this and hold it tight down to the table, and I'm going to go like this. Whoops. There we go. And I'm going to go like this here. Okay, so that gives me my arch that I need. So now what I want to do is I want to cut this out and make sure it fits inside of my project. And then if it does, I can draw this same thing on a piece of wood and cut it out on the bandsaw and put it into the project. So we're going to cut this out. Take your time cutting it out. Remember, if you mess up a wee little bit, don't throw it in the garbage. We can always add a little bit more paper, or we can always lay it out a little bit different. If you really mess it up, you'll have to try again. But if it's just a small mistake, don't worry about it. Don't throw it in the garbage and say, oh, I got to start over. Kids get frustrated. They take their paper, throw it in the garbage, and like, it didn't work out, Mr. Wells. And I'm like, well, we can always add a little bit more paper. We can cut a little square off of this notch and attach it to here if it's a little bit too small. Now we're just going to cut the arch. And then we'll see how it fits. Okay, so how do you check for proper fit? You go like this. You make sure that this fits here. Okay, so you want it to be flush there and flush towards the outside dado, so you want it to touch here and here, which it does. Then you take a look and you see if this fits here and doesn't get pushed. So we go like this here, and we make sure that that doesn't fit. Now listen, here's where I have a little bit of a problem. If you look down here, you can see that it's bowing this paper up a little bit. So I have to cut a little bit off of either right here or right here, because wood isn't going to bend. Paper, you have a little bit of flexibility with, but wood isn't going to bend. So what I need to do is I need to take this here and just cut a wee little bit. See how I left my pencil line or my pen line? I want to cut a wee little bit more off of that. And probably not even a 1/16. There we go. We can pull that off. And now it fits in between there. Okay? So now what you're going to do is you go like this and you check your left side and your right side. So you come here and you make sure that this fits underneath of here, like so, and that this fits underneath of here, like so, and that you don't have a big bend in it. Now I have a little bit of a bend, so I might need to take a wee little bit more off of, let's take it off of this side because I already took it off the other side. So let's take a little bit more off of here. A little trim, pull that piece of paper off. We got a little corner in there I got to get rid of. There we go, we'll stick it back in. And there you go. So now that, if I push this out like this, you can see that that takes the bend out of that, and I can now put that on a piece of wood. So it's not real difficult, but you want to make it out of paper first. It makes it easier. And then once you do that, you'll cut a piece of wood you'll plane a piece of wood to 3/4 of an inch. You'll cut it to your 10 3/4 or whatever the distance is for your outside of dado to outside of dado. Then you can either lay out a pattern. I usually lay it back out instead of trying to trace the paper because the paper wants to bend. And it doesn't take all that long to lay out because now the measurements are in your head. You probably remember them. And if you don't, it doesn't take that much longer to lay it out on a piece of wood and actually be able to use a square so that your lines are nice and straight. So that's it for laying out the stretcher. The next episode will be actually laying it out on a piece of wood and installing it.